Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. And I'm extremely happy because today is Huddle Day. New episode with 2 playoff topics. Sounds like a blast. As always, I'm your host, Maya Perez. Let's skate on in. The NHL playoffs started April 16th and lots have happened. I mean, the matchups have a while to go, but we have the Eastern Conference, which is the Flyers versus Penguins, Sabres versus Bruins, Canadiens versus Lightning, and the Hurricane versus Senators. Then, looking at the Western Conference, we have the Knights versus Mammoth, Ducks versus Oilers, Avalanche versus Kings, and Stars versus Wild. And I could sit here and tell you who's winning each of these series and why, but I think it'd be better if you heard it from 2 guys who love to talk puck. Kyle and Justin, now that we're a few games into playoffs, what are your final Stanley Cup predictions?
Yeah, I did pick the Hurricanes earlier in the season, and I think, I'm going to stick with that pick. I think you look at the Eastern Conference, and I think the only team that rivals them is kind of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I do see that being the Eastern Conference final. It would be interesting, though, if Montreal does upset the Lightning in the first round. But I think Lightning, Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference final, and then I have the Hurricanes winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and that's admirable of you, sticking with your gut, selecting Carolina all that time ago, and now you're sticking with them. For one, I grade these teams based off how hot they are coming into the playoffs, and no team was hotter than the Philadelphia Flyers, and they carried that straight into the first round, yeah. They're up 2-0 right now on the Penguins. Both of those games were in Pittsburgh, Porter, Martone, Owen Tippett. I cannot say enough about them. They've done an incredible job so far. I see no reason why they should stop. I mean, yeah, they're kind of young and experienced, haven't made it with fans in the arena since like 2017 or something like that. But I believe in the Flyer hype. I'm flyered up. What can I say?
And then, going back to like their average age as well. You have a lot of young guys like Drysdale, Martone, as you mentioned, as well as Trevor Zegras is still on the young side, as well as Owen Tippett, kind of a surprise in that later stage of the season, which is why they got to the playoffs. But I just think, let's dive more deep into that matchup. You take a look at the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins, battle for Pennsylvania, as a lot of people are calling it. And, you look at Sidney Crosby, you look at Evgeny Malkin, you look at Chris Letang. And in a way, it's kind of like their passing of the torch, if you will. I think that was kind of the older generation of hockey. Now you have guys like Porter Martone who's having a phenomenal playoffs, as well as Drysdale, and that Zegras kind of link up is happening there, as well as Leo Carlsson's doing his thing as well. He's on the Ducks.
Yeah.
Forget about that. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But, I think that the Flyers are kind of in a spot where they kind of have nothing to lose. People wrote them off, I think, in that playoff push, and I think they're kind of using that to their advantage.
As you said, exactly. They're playing with house money, And emphasis on passing when you say passing of the torch, because Chris Letang, he's cooked. He's finished. I've eaten rotisserie chickens that have more life than that man does.
Wow.
The man cannot skate. He cannot defend right now. We saw it with the Owen Tippett shorthanded play where he set up Porter Martone beautifully. It's one of those things where, yeah, he's a franchise legend, but you got to admit when it's time, But I do agree with you, especially, you didn't even mention Matvei Michkov, who is supposed to be one of the best prospects on that Flyers team, and he hasn't even, broken out truly yet. And he did have beef with now Knights coach John Tortorella. That was kind of the problem.
I think everyone has beef with John Tortorella.
That is true.
I think if you take a look at the coaching, we'll get to Vegas in a minute, but let's shift on over to the other team I mentioned, the Anaheim Ducks versus the Edmonton Oilers, and that's a series that, in hindsight, looks easy for the Edmonton Oilers on paper, but in Game 1, Anaheim kind of rallied back in typical Edmonton Oilers fashion. They kind of almost choked the game away, but how do you see that series going?
I don't think it's Edmonton's time to choke yet. They are much used to choking in the finals, Eastern Conference or Western Conference finals. I think that's when they'll show their true colors. And once again, kind of what we said, kind of with the Flyers, I think the Ducks are just a little bit too young right now. And give it a few seasons, they'll be a perennial second, third round team. But as of right now, I don't see them beating the Oilers this series.
Yeah, and then just recently announced Radko Gudas not playing in Game 2. Yeah. And I think that's kind of where you look at a guy that can shut down McDavid. You take a guy like Radko Gudas, who we all know what happened this regular season. I don't got to go too deep into that. But I think that if you look at the Oilers, again, we've been saying this for the past 3 or 4 years now, they have to win a cup with McDavid or else it's a total bust of a pick. And I think now that the Panthers aren't in it, you'd think that'd be the Oilers' time. But I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think this is the hardest year to win a playoff game as well as the Stanley Cup final, because there are so many teams that have basically nothing to lose, as it's their first time, similar like the Sabres, the Flyers, even the Ducks are in there as well. There's a lot of teams that have a lot to prove, but at the same time, they have nothing to lose because people wrote them off, and it's kind of going to be very tough, and it'll be interesting to see who goes into the final.
Yeah, and the Oilers, they're one of the teams that they do have something to lose. They have the whole McDavid, Draisaitl legacy to lose. You know, you go all kind of, not necessarily all in, but you get pieces at the trade deadline like Connor Murphy, etc. And then you kind of like, there's an expectation that one of these years has to be the year. But also who I think its year is really going to be, I think it's the Colorado Avalanche. I think they're just that team.
And you take a look at the game yesterday against the LA Kings, and I mean, yes, the Kings have fought hard. You know, they fought hard in game 1. They took them to overtime in game 2. I kind of didn't realize that game would still be going on. I think the Kings kind of, another one of those teams that were kind of wrote off, and the Avalanche are really, really good. I think they have the most depth, as well as they're starting to get solid goaltending. It kind of looks like their year again, similar to where they faced the Tampa Bay Lightning in their cup run. I think that you take a look at that team compared to this team. McKinnon's firing on all cylinders. Landeskog's in the mix again, as well as their defense. We all know that Cale Makar is one of, if not the best defenseman in the league. And I think the Avalanche, I'm going to say it. I'll say it's going to be Avalanche Hurricanes in the final. I think that's most people's pick. But I do see the Avalanche is kind of getting to there, kind of running out of steam. But if they get solid goaltending, it is going to be tough to beat that team.
Yeah, and quite right. Going back to Maya's original point, I absolutely agree. It's going to be the Avalanche out of the West. Dallas, maybe, but I still lean towards Colorado in that department. But I got you one better. Call me biased, call me delusional. It will be a Colorado Avalanche, Philadelphia Flyers Stanley Cup final with the Avalanche winning in 5.
I don't agree with it, but you know, let's shift over. If the Kings somehow manage to beat the Avalanche, that'll bust a lot of people.
Oh, that will bust me straight up. I mean, that would be straight up ridiculous if that upset happens.
But yeah, shifting over a little bit over into the state of Nevada where we are in, the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Utah Mammoth, and that series kind of is another toss-up. I have Utah Mammoth in 7. I think the Mammoth, again, another young team, kind of new team as well. They got their first playoff win yesterday. And, you know, you take a look at those guys, Logan Cooley, Dylan Gunther having an incredible year, as well as Clayton Keller as well. Even like former Tampa Bay Lightning, Mikhail Sergachev. There's so many good pieces on that team that I think Vegas just lacks in the depth department a little bit, as well as there's a lot of questions surrounding their goaltending, as well as, you know, John Tortorella, can he get it done? But they've kind of showed me, yes, they have a chance in this series, but I think the Mammoth, when it goes to Utah, those fans are going to be fired up. It's hockey in Utah, first ever time, and I just think it's going to be an atmosphere that Vegas, it's too much for them to handle.
Yeah, the Mammoth Zamboni, that's going to be on the eyes. That's intimidating. But imagine telling Knights fans before the year that going into the playoffs, your starting goalie would be Carter Hart and your coach would be John Tortorella. No one saw that coming, and it's kind of like just like a culture shock, really, who the Knights have been the past few seasons and who they are now. And yeah, the glory days were those past few seasons. Now that they're in the now, I don't see them beating the Mammoth as well.
And then let's shift on over to the final matchup in the Western Conference, arguably the best matchup in the Western Conference, the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild. I think that game will also go 7 games. I don't even know who you picked to win that.
I like Quinn Hughes. Give me the Minnesota Wild. I know I mentioned Dallas a little bit earlier, maybe competing with Colorado, but I think the Wild are quite a bit better than the Stars.
I think I'm going to agree with you. You know, game 1 opened my eyes to a lot of things, and it's the fact that the Dallas Stars, they kind of just don't have it. And, you know, you rely on Jake Ottinger so much, and he can only do so much. But, you know, almost getting blanked in your home arena when playoff time comes, I don't understand how the Stars can beat the Wild, especially with Brock Faber playing how he's playing, Matthew Boldy playing how he's playing, Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov playing how he's playing. And they just have they kind of have a complete team in a way. And I just don't think the Stars can kind of rally that.
No, they're another one of those teams who I felt like their window was like a few seasons ago. You know, you lose in the finals that one year, and then since then hasn't been the greatest time over in Dallas. And I think now it's the young guys in Minnesota's time to shine.
Speaking of the young guys on that team, let's talk more of kind of the younger generation of the NHL, the Buffalo Sabres against the Boston Bruins.
Right.
Yes, I know the Buffalo Sabres lost, almost got blanked in their home arena, But, I think that game one kind of was eye-opening for all Sabres fans. I mean, the atmosphere, you cannot get a better atmosphere than that. Fans literally fighting, rollerblading to the rink as well on the streets, and beating up a dummy with, like a boxing dummy with the Bruins jersey on. But they kind of got beat down in that second game. 4-0 is kind of got 2 goals kind of in garbage time. But I think the Sabres do still win that. I think that they're better on the road in a way, and it's just all about Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen had one of the worst games I've ever seen. And I don't think he repeats that as well as if Alex Lyon gets the start. I see the Sabres winning 1, possibly 2 games in TD Garden, but I think it's still Sabres in 6, I have to say.
Yeah, I know I kind of trash on the Sabres a little bit all year. I'm poking your buttons, but they are the better team. They clinched their division for a reason, and I think they will show it. I don't think they necessarily even make it to the finals. I think Carolina and Tampa Bay are much stronger options, but I do agree with you. I think they beat Boston.
Yeah, I think that although I could see Buffalo getting past if Montreal beats Tampa.
Yes.
Because you look at the season series between those two teams, and I think Buffalo kind of has the edge. Yes, I know Montreal came into the playoffs on a hot streak. Cole Caulfield's playing at a level kind of that we haven't seen him play before. But I think that Buffalo just kind of has... I think that crowd is going to play so much into their kind of way of play. And, their speed, their defense is still young. They have a lot of young guys on that team as well as some vets. And I just think that the Sabres kind of have the edge if Montreal were to win that game. But if Tampa does, I think Tampa wins that game, wins that series.
Yeah. And they kind of, because I know we said about prior championship windows, Tampa Bay also had prior championship windows and experience. But then Kucherov comes back this season, has one of the best seasons of his entire career. So with that kind of knowledge, I think, why not? Why not Tampa Bay again? Why not Brandon Hagel and the gang,
And then focusing on another Eastern Conference matchup, we'll go down to my Stanley Cup final pick, the Hurricanes playing the Ottawa Senators, who actually went into double overtime yesterday in one of, if not the craziest games I've ever seen. Martin Hook getting a penalty shot, not scoring it. Then there was an offsides on the play to get to the penalty shot, and then kind of redeems himself and scores the OT winner in double overtime. But I just think the Senators are outmatched in that series.
Dude, they are. Respectfully to the Senators, a Kachuk-led team is going nowhere. And Ottawa, they're not that big market. They're not that big team that's going to really do damage, at least not this season, and especially not against the Carolina Hurricanes.
I think that the Hurricanes they have the best goaltending in the Eastern Conference. I think Frederik Andersen is kind of like the guy who we go to. And I think, you take a look at the other side of goaltending, kind of Linus Ullmark hasn't played to his caliber that we've seen him play in Boston. And I think that's what they thought they were getting. And, he kind of went to the Senators and was like, in a way. And then as well as the depth as well. I think the Hurricanes, Aho, Svechnikov, just Jarvis, there's so many different pieces on that team that can score. I just don't think the Senators can catch up with them.
No. But that is actually all the time we have for this episode of The Huddle, at least this hockey segment of The Huddle, am I right? We'll be back next week every Friday with more hockey coverage throughout the NHL playoffs. Back to you, Maya.
Thanks, guys. Personally, I think the Knights are winning the cup because why wouldn't they? But that's enough from the ice. Let's go to the court. The NBA playoffs are heating up and the teams are fighting to get to the next round. Stars like Victor Wembanyama and LeBron James, are duking it out. Guys, what can you tell me about the NBA playoffs?
Thanks, Maya. As NBA action in the playoffs heat up, teams are clawing to get each and every game. Let's start with the Spurs and the Trailblazers because, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about Denny Advia just coming back in game 2, as well as Scoot Henderson, 30 points. Yeah. Although Victor was out, though, it's 1-1 in the series.
I mean, so we are filming this on, Wednesday? We just finished game 2. For all we know of, Wemby's probably going to be out for game 3.
Yeah. Maybe
back for game 4. So realistically, let's say they go back to San Antonio 2-2. That's a really interesting series that we thought was going to be a sweep heading in. Fox isn't playing his great, to his full potential. All their young guys are just showing that they are young guys at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And this team without Wemby looks kind of lost.
Yeah, overall, I mean, losing, but that's like every team, losing big factors.
Yeah.
Wemby's like the guy of that team. He eliminates both the scoring side and the rebounding side. And I think losing both of your like top rebounder and one of your top scorers, losing two of those top categories messes up the team dynamic and in the locker room for sure. But I think this is the opportunity for these young guys to step up, and they really need to take advantage of that. But it comes down to also Portland, who's trying to take advantage of not having Wemby, where we saw C.J. McCollum went crazy. We saw Scoot, like you said, went crazy.
30.
And it's like these guys, like you could see Portland wants it more so far. And this series could either go either way. And honestly, I'm excited to keep watching it.
Hey, it's about time that the Spurs, I mean, there's been talks throughout the entire season of, oh, the Spurs are so talented, the Spurs have so much depth. Well, it's now time to show why they paid De'Aaron Fox all that money and traded their future for De'Aaron Fox, and he needs to step up, as well as young guys like Carter Bryant. When I tell you, when I saw Carter Bryant at Summer League, he was the best defender I've ever seen in my life. He needs to step up right here. Although just a rookie, Stephon, Dylan Harper.
Yeah.
You can see the talent in here, but it's just like, yeah.
I think without Wemby, the Spurs are still like probably an 8th seed, just off of pure talent and the depth. However, teams like this will always struggle early on when you have such a young core.
Fact.
Granted, you have Fox. Granted, you have Harrison Barnes, who might also be out. We saw that injury as well. So this could really be like a toss-up getting back to San Antonio, because, I mean, if Scoot's shooting the way he is, like Scoot dropped, 30 yesterday, right? Most of those came off of jump shots. That's something we did not think Scoot would be doing when he was drafted. So it's like, this whole team is just kind of, on fire right now.
You speak of young core. Now let's go to a series where it has a little young core on one side and a more experienced core on the other. Of course, Houston versus LA. As of we're filming this, LA has a 2-0 lead right now. And Kevin Durant didn't play game 1, granted. He came back game 2. And what do you know? The king still holds his position on his throne because he was dominant in that game.
When I was watching that game yesterday, all I saw was the same exact thing that we've seen from how the Lakers approach the Rockets, and it's just double team KD, do everything you can to stop KD. KD dropped 20 in the first half. I'll give him that, and he dropped 3 in the second.
2 points.
Yeah, 2 points in the second half, and it's because they don't have, and I've said this kind of from the beginning, with VanVleet out, with the rest of their core, they don't really have that much playmaking outside of Şengün.
Yeah.
And we have someone like Şengün who's kind of getting exposed right now, the same way that we saw with Sabonis back in 23 with these, bigger European playmaking-heavy centers. What are the Rockets supposed to do right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, without KD, if KD doesn't have that elite scoring ability, KD's most definitely one of the best scorers in all areas in the league. But I think without him, with the Lakers stopping him, it just changes the whole dynamic of the game. It's the same thing for Wemby. When Wemby's not playing, like we said earlier, it changes the dynamic. And it's kind of the same thing because we saw the first game when KD didn't play, which was random. Everybody was still shocked. But then whenever he did play, he got hot in that first half, but they had to slow him down because they knew that KD's the type of player where if you give him in the fourth quarter and he's not on a lockdown, if a lockdown defender's not guarding him, he will score 20 points in the fourth quarter. KD would have had 45 possibly if they didn't stop him. And I think that's what how the Lakers are seeing it as well, is like, okay, if we just stop KD, they only have Şengün and then what? Maybe Thompson, but Thompson's more of a defender type of player. So it kind of changes the whole game. So it's definitely a good series, but going back to they go to LA now, right?
They played the first 2 games.
They
in
go
LA, so
to Houston. So that'll change and see how that goes.
At the very least, I think they split that. I don't think the Lakers take 2 on the road. I don't think they're going to sweep this Rockets team. You also got to remember, this is a Lakers team without Luka, without AR. You have Luke Kennard playing out of his mind right now. And this like the one thing that we learned from this year specifically is Luke Kennard's been misused his whole career. If you have someone like that added on top of a healthy Lakers team, let's say next year, because AR is probably out for the rest of this playoffs, we'll see what Luka does. Luka's been hinting at it. The Lakers have been kind of hinting at it. So let's say Lakers winning, what, 6? Let's say Luka comes back by then. You still have everyone on their bench playing great. You have Aiden somehow playing pretty good right now.
But does that change Luke Kennard's usage rate? Because they were talking about it on the broadcast.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I mean, what if you really just upgrade the Lakers, or what if you upgrade, him to that AR role essentially?
Yeah.
That's kind of what he was 2 years ago.
That's true. Or even like Smart's out there playing like basketball that like we have not seen all year long. Like Smart is out there hooping, and it's like this guy, like you could tell the Lakers actually want it.
Yeah.
And even Bronny got a couple more minutes than usual. He's not, not known for his ability, but he's definitely not making the greatest impact, but he's definitely still there, and you can still notice him.
Hey, speaking of basketball we haven't seen in a while, Nikola Jokic, man, this regular season from him has been absolutely ridiculous. And going into the playoffs, Nuggets steal game 1, but game 2 is really what I want to focus on. Anthony Edwards comes in 30 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, but that's just a type of game to, put you on a pedestal. In the playoffs, we've known he's been a good performer, but I mean, 30 points and 10 rebounds as a guard, ridiculous.
Wemby will be the best player in the league, but Ant will always be the face of the league. Yeah. There's something so, energetic, so exciting about him that, we just see, regardless of the roster around him, whether it's him and Cat, whether it's him and Randall, whether it's just him and Gobert if Randall's out or whatever. Ant just has that it factor. Ant can, score on essentially anyone. His shooting ability over the past, 2-3 years, ever since he gained that shot, has been incredible for their offense. I still don't really believe in this roster. Mainly, I don't believe in a duo of Ant and Randall. And I think this will really bite them, come to bite them when they try to face on like the Nuggets, which they've played 50 times.
Yeah, this is like,
But I mean, they're going to run to the same issue that they always have.
Yeah. Well, we've seen, the Nuggets and the Timberwolves playing the playoffs for the last 3 years. And it's it's consistent. We know that Ant's going to be Ant regardless. But I do just like that matchup of Jokic going crazy his game and then Ant going crazy. And then they kind of just go back and forth. But these series usually always end up in about a 6, maybe a 7-game series. And I think that's what changes the game because it's Ant and Jokic. 2 phenomenal players, but I like what you said, how Ant really, you don't see him playing, them winning this series, especially the way that the Nuggets are playing, though. Nuggets are playing like a championship contender team again. We're seeing Jamal Murray. He's not Jamal Murray from 2 seasons ago before he got injured that one season, but then also you're seeing Aaron Gordon, who's been playing ball. He's been one of the great defenders, but he's also been able to score at that dunking level that he's known for. And I think that's what brings the sparks to the Nuggets is that dunking ability that Aaron Gordon has.
You got to think about the fact that they've played probably every year for the past 3 years. What have the Timberwolves done in that past 3 years?
Traded away Cat.
That's really it for Randall, and in my opinion, it's a downgrade. But regardless, that's really it.
Yeah,
they haven't really gotten their lead guard. We still have issues with Ant bring the ball up because Robbie's going to double team you regardless. Yeah. So it's if you don't make any moves, this is what's going to happen. You're probably going to have another 6-game series with the Nuggets, and you're going to lose in the first or second round.
Yep.
Let's mix in a little Eastern Conference love now. The Hawks versus the Knicks series tied 1-1 due to, we mentioned earlier in the show, Jeremiah, CJ McCollum.
Yeah. CJ McCollum, that guy's ridiculous. My bad, rephrase the question.
What was that?
So, I mean, these guys have just been going at it. We're so excited to see what's to come. So make sure you're tuned in here on The Huddle for everything basketball. Sending it back to you, Maya.
That's all for today's episode, but you can always watch more content and clips on our Instagram at thehuddle.official. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to everyone who came on to talk some hockey and basketball. As always, I'm your host, Maya Perez, and I'll see you guys next week.